Okay, so while we're waiting for people to gather, let me tell you about what we're going to do today. Thank you for joining, everyone. My name is Ben Salisbury. I'll be moderating today. I have with me two distinguished gentlemen who are going to engage in the discussion with me. First is Jack Cohen Martin, the founder and CEO of Grape Inn. I'll have him introduce himself in a moment. We also have Maurizio Gambarucci with the Italy American Chamber of Commerce down in Houston. Thank you guys for joining. Why don't we take just a few minutes for you guys to introduce yourselves, and then I'll talk about our program.
So, hi everyone. Good morning in the US and good afternoon, Europe. Great. So, my background is in online marketing. I work with big and small brands, and that's what propelled us to build Grapin. Grapin is a marketing and sales automation platform, and our goal is really to help suppliers, especially new coming brands, to expand their distribution to new states by connecting them with distributors, importers, logistics services, and then once active in a new market, the platform enables you to facilitate mar- using marketing services, be active on the market, use sales automation tools for streamlining of orders, and also be active with trade organizations such as the Italian Chamber of Commerce. This year we partnered with Maurizio on the Taste of Italy, which he founded, and it was a great success. So that's about Grapin.
Well, thank you, Jack. Welcome. Maurizio, tell us about yourself.
Good morning. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jack, for inviting me on this occasion. Good morning, everyone in the United States, and good afternoon to the friends in Europe, not only Italy today. I can see from the participants list. My name is Maurizio. As you all know, I am the Deputy Director of the Italy America Chamber of Commerce in Texas. We cover not only Texas, but also Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And our goal, I would say our mission, is to help Italian producers of any kind, of any sort, to succeed in the United States, starting from the south central door of the country. I have been working in the food and wine side of the business for almost 7 years now. We have helped hundreds, I would say, of producers to face the market challenges in many different ways. We're going to talk about those later in the webinar. Mainly, I would say, our Taste of Italy event that has been going on for a few years now, and then we'll give you more details about that too. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. Looking forward to our discussion. So I'm Ben Salisbury. I'm the founder and president of the Salisbury Creative Group. We're a 6-year-old consulting agency. We specialize in helping wineries and craft distilleries from all over the world improve their sales strategy, mostly through the use of tech. So I'm excited to be on here today and pleased to be able to serve as your moderator. We're going to have a group discussion. We have 3 topics lined up that we want to go through. The first, we're going to talk about the challenges that producers face when they come to the U.S. market. We're also going to talk about best practices, especially current best practices that you could, use right away. And then we're going to talk about the digital aspect of selling. Now that we're in this COVID environment, face-to-face selling opportunities are few and far between. We need to talk about what can be done digitally from your desk. So before we do that, I want to just say that we're going to be taking questions in the chat and in the Q&A. I also want to say that the content today will focus mostly on wine, but these strategies are applicable to all consumer product groups, and they're applicable to producers anywhere in the world. So don't jump off this webinar because you don't happen to represent wine. Any other consumer product packaged goods are going to work just fine. So with that, we will jump in. I'll keep a close eye on the chat and keep the questions inserted into the dialogue. So the first thing I want to throw out to the group to discuss is the challenges. I want to discuss some of the most common challenges that small brands face when going to market in the US. It is not a level playing field. It is a really tough environment. I talk a lot about not depending too much on your importers and your distributors. And we're going to be getting into why that is today. But I'm very interested to hear from, I want to hear from you first, Maurizio, as you talk to your constituents about trying to be successful in the US. What are some of the biggest challenges that you hear most often?
I would say I usually find that there are two different kinds of challenges, that resonate with two different steps of activity that producers from overseas need to face while they approach the US market. The first one is how you get your products legally imported in the United States. How do you find your importer? How do you find your first business partner for your journey? The second one instead is, and probably to me is the biggest one. What do you do once your products is legally imported in the United States and even possibly distributed in one of the states that you have chosen? There are many ways to address these two challenges. The first one, to look for your importer, can be done in many different ways. Traditionally, you would have done it with maybe some trade shows, like for the Italian producers in Italy, or a trade show here, Taste of Italy, or some other kind of trade shows or networking event. Nowadays, we have done it so many times also online with this two B2B meetings through Zoom or some other platforms. And as I said, this is easier. This is the easiest part to overcome. The second one, what do you do once your product is distributed somewhere? And it is what I call the last mile challenge. It is more interesting to me, actually. So what do you do once your product is distributed in Texas, for instance? You think that might be the end of your efforts, but I would say it's just the beginning of it. And from that point, there are so many things that you can do. And after the pandemic, there are so many new things that you can do. I believe that we'll discuss here today. They go from the door-to-door sales strategy to the digital one, where you as a producer support your distributor, if you have any, for the big effort of getting your products in front of the right buyer. That can be the buyer of a restaurant, that can be the buyer of a grocery store chain, or the customer, the final customer that you want to address to. And these are the two challenges that I see. How do you find your importer? How do you legally bring your products here? But it's not about only to find an importer. There's so many ways, even easier ways, just to clear your products and bring a few pallets here. I believe we'll talk about this as well today. But then everything, the real fun begins right after that. Once your product is somewhere in a warehouse, it can be Texas, can be New Jersey, can be California.
Yeah, getting that first pallet is not the hard part. Just getting the second,
Correct.
third, and fourth pallet.
Yes.
So that's great, Maurizio. Jack, what can you add to that on this topic of biggest challenges?
Right. So obviously, Maurizio hit the biggest pains. So to address this from the angle of Grapin as a platform, we see producers or new brands coming from one state to the other, from either small or big producers. What they have in mind is a lot of time going to the biggest importer distributor, try to get them on board. So they try, their priority number one, and then number two, and then a lot of times they kind of get stuck, right? The alternative channels, whether it's clearing distributors or logistics services, are sometimes there's maybe no good strategies around it. They're not sure how to go about it. And then online marketing is perceived to be expensive, maybe unreachable. So that's as far as coming up with new product and bringing it to the market, whether it's a different state if you're a local supplier, or coming into the US, which entails a bit more paperwork, right? And then for brands who are already on the market, as mentioned, the fact that you have an importer distributor, this is just the beginning. And that's what we call the representation gap, where because of regulation and because of logistic reasons, a lot of time the seller who represents the brand is not the winemaker or the supplier themselves, but it's a rep that works for a distributor, someone in the middle, and that creates a disconnect between the product and the account. And if we're talking about the end consumer, that even creates a bigger gap if you don't have good online representation, which is the best way to get to the end consumers. So there's maybe lack of understanding and maybe lack of tools that help you push your product and sales through the 3 tiers. Whether you're using a traditional distributor or a clearance distributor or logistic, you still need to be able to push your product through the 3 tier.
Well, I think we did a very good job of hammering out what the big challenges are. I'm sure everybody's keen to start talking about what can we do about these things. So while you have the mic, Jack, I would love to talk about what are some of the best practices you've found to help suppliers penetrate these markets, to help overcome those gaps. Because you're right, if you're depending on your importer and distributor to do it for you, you're going to be very disappointed. And for decades, producers outside of the US have relied on those partners to do this work. But there are so many brands and so few of them that you're going to have to find new ways of operating. And that's what this webinar is all about. So Jack, would love to hear about some of the best practices that you've seen and are recommending for closing those gaps.
Right. So what we've noticed at work is for suppliers who bring new product to a new state or to the US market is to first bring their best sellers, right? So pick the best sellers, identifying the right market for a product is obviously also the key. And we help that with data. We partnered with Nielsen recently, and we have other ways of helping figure out what's the best way, which most likely is the best market for your product. Then bring the product to a market. You shouldn't sit and wait for a traditional importer to pick you up. You can be proactive and get a product with clearing distributor or logistic company. That will allow you, once you're on the market, that will allow you to start submit your product to get scores, right? That help generate sales and help get noticed by wholesalers as well as trade buyers and end consumers. So in order to get scores and apply for scores, you need to have active distribution. You can start reaching out to your contacts and old leads, whether you used to have an importer, used to have sales in a certain market, start engage with the market this way, send samples, join trade events that can accelerate this process. And also, very importantly, take advantage of online tools to run online campaigns, generate leads, expand your database of available contacts to people who basically raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested to try this, I'm interested to talk. Once you form relationships with wholesalers and trade buyers, it's easier to get ramped up and also figure out whether you want to go traditional route and get a distributor that's going to buy your product, or go some alternative routes, like keep working with a clearance distributor, a clearing distributor, and basically represent your product yourself. And maybe this way you can get a better competitive advantage by being able to offer a better price while still keep better margins for yourself. It's not for everyone, but at least it's open up this option for you.
Well, that's great. So I heard a couple of really good things in there, a couple of really great truth bombs. You know, you've got to take responsibility for this. The whole idea of lead generation and direct response marketing is very new to our industry, but those of you on the call today would be well advised to start looking into this very deeply. And also, as Jack said, just exploring all the alternative ways to get your product in the market. And I think one of your best suggestions was keep your focus narrow, both on what you bring into the market and who you're going after. So that's great. Mauricio, I know you deal with a lot, literally hundreds and hundreds of different producers. So I would love to hear your ideas of some of the best practices that you see for being successful in this market.
Thanks. What traditionally, I still think that finding the right distributor is going to help, meaning that if you really find someone who hits the road for you, is still something that really help your business. And I know a few of them, for instance, here in Texas, that I see the difference. When you really have a committed distributor that really loves your products, either wine or something else, that pushes it for you to the, the final customer or the end consumer, either another kind of buyer. But we know that this is not something that happens all the time. Otherwise, it is, the right. I've seen actually during this pandemic many new best practices that we have experienced at the Chamber of Commerce to help a few dozens of producers to come into the market. And I would like to mention the virtual tastings, the virtual dinner, the virtual guided tasting that we have been doing in the last 3-4 months. That I have seen amazingly powerful success of these new tools. And I was amazed because I'm a kind of a dinosaur when it comes to digital ways, digital pillars of marketing, but I found that so easily to implement. And with the help of some more savvy people like Jack, we partnered a lot with our events and with our producers with Great Bean platform. I saw how powerful that can be, especially in a way, in a moment where producers or their export manager cannot physically travel to the United States. And this can be replicated even when they will be able to come back again, hitting the road by themselves, visiting clients and clients. It's just so powerful. We all know that marketing literature advises to have different pillars of marketing for you to address the market, at least 6 or 7. So if you add to the traditional distribution channel or the traditional wine dinners or the traditional wine tasting, if you added virtual tastings, virtual dinners, if you add a virtual platform like Great Bean is that allows you to have your profile always available for you as a tool to be discovered for the first time or to be reminded after you have been discovered, but also as a tool for your distributor to show your products to different clients everywhere in the state where they work and operate or everywhere in the country. It is so powerful. So really, I've seen so many new opportunities for our clients and members during this pandemic that we're really excited to implement in the future.
Well, I have a few things to add to the best practices, but we also had a great question come in as Jack was talking about alternative distributor types, specifically clearing distributors. Jack, maybe you can expand just a little bit about what that is and how to find these.
Sure. Yeah, great comment by Steve. So basically, when I mention clearing distributors, it's not a magic word. Any distributor, importer distributor that has licenses can potentially help you clear out your products. And by clearing out, meaning sell, deal with any paperwork required, and also help with the logistics to enable you to sell legally in the market in the US.
Yes, thank you. A lot of people aren't really aware that these alternatives are out there. They are a little hard to find, but they're there. So increasing your network and surrounding yourself with people who understand these things is crucial. I would just add to the best practices before we move on to my favorite topic, which is selling digitally. I would just say that if you do not have 2 very specific email lists going right now, one of all of your trade buyer contacts and one of consumers that are interested in your products. If you're not diligently pursuing those people and growing those email lists and then using email software like MailChimp or Constant Contact, this is part of the tool set. This is the new best practice for being successful in this market. You have to be able to communicate directly with trade buyers as a producer. And believe me, they want to have that relationship with you. You start small and you slowly build from there, and you build in a high quality organic way. So I have a saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. And so you need to get started on your email list. You have one, then you have two, then you have 10, then you have 20. You must be able to speak directly to those people. You have to know how to attract them to your brand and your company, and you have to know how to nurture those relationships. So I think that is one best practice I wanted to put onto the pile. So let's turn to our last topic, which is all about how to sell digitally. We are in the pandemic. Everybody's tied to their desk. Face-to-face selling opportunities, while they're starting to open up in some parts of the U.S., they're still pretty much non-existent in many markets. So how do you reach people? If you can't go to the distributor, pull samples, get in your car, sit in front of a buyer and pull corks, how do you sell? How do you sell digitally? Well, there's a whole array of strategies and tools that you need to get going on. Email marketing is a big one of them. I would also add key account targeting, doing your own research as to who the key players are in each market, and identify who the key buyers are. I have good news. This is more possible than ever before, thanks to tools like Yelp and LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. You'd be amazed what you can find out about the market, the accounts, and the buyers by just doing some good old-fashioned research. If it's anywhere in your brain that that's the realm of the importer distributor, that's their job, you're going to continue to struggle, because while that used to be the case, it's not. The burden of building distribution has now fallen to the producer. So using digital strategies like that, making use of CRM, you have to you have a lot to keep track of. Since you're now in charge of building distribution, you have a lot to keep track of. So you need a good, reliable CRM system that's cloud-based and mobile friendly to start keeping track of all the opportunities. And then I would just also add lead generation. If you're not doing anything with lead generation now, and you don't understand how to attract trade buyer leads and what to do with them once you have them, you must start on that journey today, because it can make a huge difference. And this is a great time of year to start doing that. So those are just a few of the things I wanted to highlight around selling digitally. Jack, I know you have a lot to say on this topic too, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes. Great points. And Ben, you and I, we've been working with companies, and you saw how you managed to take a company through an existing way of doing things and transform them and help them not only organize things internally with CRMs and with better segmentation and targeting of accounts, focus on what matters, but then also take advantage of online marketing tools. And Maurizio, I'm glad that in the previous section you mentioned the Taste of Italy and the other virtual events we had a chance to run together, the virtual tasting events that we did for small and bigger crowds. I think that nowadays a lot of people, because there's also no other choice, are realizing how powerful these tools are and how successful virtual events and virtual activities could be. And potentially when things are going to go back to normal, some of these tools and some of these behaviors are going to stay for a good reason, because it's a really good alternative. And even if you do market facing activities that are, physical, they're on the street, you still want to complement it with additional channels. So you have better pipe of things coming in for sales. In terms of how to sell digitally, leveraging digital tools, that's obviously my thing. That's why we built Grapin. So I have sort of an agenda here, right? But I truly believe, and we saw that it's working. With online platforms such as Grapin and, utilizing LinkedIn, Facebook, and other social tools, as well as advertising networks, you can basically also target B2B. So doing e-commerce for B2B, this is something that is picking up. It's a very cost-effective solution. Being able to offer your product B2B for 24/7, and not just rely on sales meetings where there's an actual rep coming with a tasting, a sample to a business. That's really a key component, especially these days, and that's what Graping is facilitating with. The other thing is having a way, when you're active online, having a way to easily find your products, learn about your products, and act online while the intent is there. Being able to order online, to ask for a sample, to ask a question, and ask a question to someone who can actually answer, like the winemaker or someone from the from the distillery, and not just a generic rep that may end up selling you something else, right? So having this communication with the market, have some understanding of how much inventory exists, right? So have it actionable, really actionable, and also to some extent insightful about the product. And using online marketing to generate leads and expand your database. That's a big thing that Ben has been preaching for, and we've been doing some of this together for the past several years. And with Maurizio, in the past few months, we've been running more than 3 events, and we saw how getting leads of people who are raising their hand and saying, I'm interested in this exact thing that you are about to present, in this exact company, that's very powerful. It brings also more meaningful connections and communication when the event comes.
That's great. And when we're talking about these things, these digital things, and two of my favorite things about them are scalability. Sitting down with a buyer tasting wine is not scalable, but the things we're talking about are extremely scalable. Also, you can automate. So many of these things can be automated. Like if someone signs up for something, they get an automated response leading them to other resources. These are very, very important tools. Those of you that are on this webinar, you received some emails from me, reminders and teasers, etc. Most of those were written last week, and I scheduled them to go out. And if you just signed up for this webinar in the last 2 days, you were automatically added to the list to receive those things. That's a great example of how automation is. I'm keen to get to Maurizio on this topic because I know you guys are doing a lot with campaigns that bring importers, wholesalers, producers, and buyers together. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this idea of doing it digitally, not in person.
Yes. I would like to say that I was impressed about one concept. May Jackie want to say something more about it, which is the artificial intelligence, which is behind the platform and behind the digital marketing that you guys are doing. And I was, super excited about knowing more about this, but more than me becoming keen on that, I saw how effective that was. For the campaign that Jack and I ran together for the Taste of Italy that we had in last September, I saw coming to our event attention more than 80 new leads that we found out through this digital campaign. They were completely new to me. We targeted Texas, of course. We targeted Louisiana as well because we had some business to develop there too. And we target California in cooperation with the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, Italian Chamber of Commerce. And we saw a stream of 83, I think, new leads. That's a lot if you think about it. We physically involved here in Texas 40 buyers. Okay, so we had 83 new ones. Of course, there's a different level of attention, of interest of this, but out of those 83, I ended up sending samples to 3 of them, okay, which already is something. And one of that is close to convert into a purchase of some of those products. So one sale out of 83 new leads, it's not bad. And it costed what? A few $100 to get those 83 leads. So the return of investment to get 83 new leads, less than $10 each, right? And to make one sale out of that is nothing. It's a great investment. It's a great return on that investment. So I was amazed out of that. And if I have another couple of minutes, I would say something on this note about how to sell digitally. I would say how to sell virtually. And this goes back to the old traditional way of building the relationship with people, one-on-one, face-to-face, which is probably not necessarily scalable immediately, but is so powerful. Last thing that we've done 2 days ago, we ran a virtual guided tasting featuring Piedmontese organic wines with an audience of 15 local buyers here. And I was impressed how at the end of that virtual tentative sales, we had 3 buyers asking for prices right away. And 2 of them are already in touch with the producers trying to negotiate a good deal. So how faster than that could it be? It is a digital sale, it's a virtual sale. They're very close by. And so I think there's a lot of potential. I don't even know how to, take advantage of all these opportunities for my members and clients, but I'm sure we'll figure that out a way, because these tools are so powerful. And I know for some reason, we always partner with Jack and Grapevine in order for these products to get exposure outside of our small network. And that is the scalable way for us to be there for an entire year or maybe more than that and be visible to unknown buyers for us as a chamber and for our members as the final one who will benefit from these virtual or digital campaigns.
Yeah, so you really have to roll out the digital red carpet for people. If I go to your website right now, how hard is it for me to get on your email list? It should be very, very easy. But a better question is, how hard is it for me to identify myself as a member of the trade when I do it? So if your website isn't set up to identify members of the trade when they sign up for your email, that's something you could fix today. So there's a lot of practical things. Imagine if you're a producer and you get any piece of press, because any press is a good press, but you were able to send that immediately to your entire email list of trade buyers with a link in the email that says, click here to request a sample. This is extremely scalable. If you're not set up to do those things, let today be the day you start down that road. So we don't have time to go into the education of how to do all this stuff, but I hope today was a good primer to open your eyes. A, that you can't depend too much on your importers and distributors. You're going to have to do a lot of this yourself. B, you can leverage technology in new ways that you haven't even thought of. They're scalable and they can be automated. And then the third thing is you've got to have to spend some time learning about these things. You're going to have to allow yourself the room in your day to learn some new things. So we're kind of near the end of our discussion time. I would love to open it up for any questions. If you have a question for the panelists, either the panel in general or someone specific, use the chat, use the Q&A. We'll stay on here a bit longer to answer any questions that come through. If you have to drop off, I want to tell you a couple things. You're going to get 2 emails from me guaranteed. One has probably already been sent out because I had it set up to be automated. It is the contact information from everyone here. So that email will be coming to you. The other thing that's going to come to you is a link to the recording of this session, so you can share it with your colleagues or watch it again when you have time or you want to. So with that, I would love to take any questions. Okay, so here's a good question. Yeah, so what if you already have a distributor, okay, and you still just nothing is happening? You're not spending time and energy searching for an import distributor. You already have that in place. So how can you begin to take some of the things we talked about today and put that, what would be one of the first couple of things you would do? I throw this out to you guys, Jack and Maurizio.
So if you already have your product here, it's a good start. As we said in the beginning, it's great. You've done half of the job, I would say, but the second half is still there to be completed. Nowadays, what you can do, the final goal is to get in front of the right buyers for you, whatever that buyer is. If you specialize in the retail sector, you need to get in front of the retail buyer. If you specialize in the food service, you need to get in front of the right food service buyer. What we have the experience, as I was saying lately, is just the virtual event we're doing. For instance, we're going to have another one in end of February, beginning of March, another virtual B2B one-on-one meetings, and you present your products in one of those. And the thing that will differentiate you and it will give you more power for that if you are able to send the samples in advance so that we can deliver the samples to the buyers in a way that at the moment that you talk to the buyer will be sipping your wine, will be tasting your whatever balsamic vinegar or your other kind of sample. That has made the difference for us. We saw how powerful that thing is in terms also of commitment of the buyer. Imagine a buyer receiving a couple of days before the meeting with you 10 bottles of wine. He has the time to taste the wine a couple of days before, open the bottle for dinner, open the bottle for lunch with the friends or family, limit a group of family and friends to the pandemic. And the amount of attention we saw the buyers are putting into those products is unprecedented. I've never seen so much attention and careful attention compared to any physical trade show. So that is a way for you to get in front of the right buyer once your product is already here.
Okay, then Jack, what do you do if you don't have a distributor? What's the first thing you would do?
Right. So I would try to go out there and sell myself. Now, the options of selling is obviously get someone, food on the street, start knocking on doors or opening the Rolodex. Obviously, this is hard to scale. It takes time. So I would do that if I can, but I would also, or I would even start with online activities. So these virtual events that Maurizio is mentioning, a lot of them are running on Grapin, right? So I would start joining virtual events, run online campaigns, make my products available for anyone that is looking for them, any B2B, make them available online. Obviously, Grapin can help with this. You can use LinkedIn, you can use different ways to do that. Grapin is specifically tailored for that specific use case. And while running online campaigns and generating leads, you can get people, you can practically reach out to thousands of people online. And it's enough, it's a big numbers game. As Maurizio mentioned, we reach out to hundreds or thousands. There are several dozens register and interact, and then it's enough to get one sale. And not only that, it pays for everything. And also, we're talking about the campaign we ran with Maurizio. It was less than a month. We're talking about 3 weeks. So it was fast. And when you get a match, it's a very strong match. And from the people who opt in, there's a strong interest. And you start forming a relationship with them that on a long term can become something much bigger than that specific activity. So there's a strong, I would say it's a pull instead of push. Instead of you pushing your product and putting it in front of people, physically, you get people to raise their hand and say, yes, I'm interested, and reach out to you. And that's a totally different engagement that is going on.
That's great. Well, now we start having questions pouring in, so I hope you guys can stay on a little bit longer. Some of these are great questions. One of our attendees chimed in with some great advice, which is start small, have some success, keep track of everything you do so that you can tell that story, you can replicate it and scale it. So that's a great suggestion. This is my favorite, one of my favorite questions here. My importer distributor felt like I was stepping on their toes by reaching out to prospects in wine stores and restaurants in the trade. They were very protective of their business. How do you suggest changing their mindset on this? Well, I would love to tackle this question. I would, since it's gift buying season, I would buy those people a calendar. Make sure it's a calendar that shows the year very prominently, 2021. Okay, the days of distributors owning their customer base are long, long gone. Do not accept that BS excuse for 1 minute. People who consume your product are your customers. So are the trade buyers. So just ignore that. Push back on it, and push back on it hard. Because this protectionistic viewpoint is an old one. It's an old tape. It's an old paradigm. So there are people right now, while we're on this webinar, controlling their own destiny by having relationships with trade buyers and consumers. Make sure you're one of them, and don't let your distributor or importer dissuade you. That's just there's just control freaks run amok. Another question about how important has e-commerce been this year? You'd be hard pressed to find a lack of press about what has been happening with online sales and e-commerce. So it is a game changer. It's just quite dramatic. So, and any specific advice for using this channel, I'd love to hear for Jack and Maurizio, but I will just say this: you must optimize everything. You must optimize your presence on Facebook, your presence on Instagram, your presence on LinkedIn. Your website needs to be optimized for conversions, for getting customers. Make sure you're easy to find. Make sure the user experience for purchasing is absolutely seamless. I wish we had time. I'll take in a little tour of people's websites. Oh, you can buy product online, but it's a pain in the ass. And that should not be so. People need to be able to do it on their phone. So a lot of work to be done for a lot of people on getting their share of the e-commerce business, because they're just not optimized for it. Anything that you guys want to add about e-commerce?
Yeah. I want to say something that is going to be kind of counterintuitive these days. So the pandemic started, a lot of people figured out, brand owners, okay, now I have to go online. And the first idea that comes to hand is doing direct to consumer. Now, guess what? If you jump immediately to direct to consumer, and most websites of producers and distilleries are focusing on the end consumer, now you're basically fighting on the end consumer's attention, which is limited and almost that doesn't exist because they're ads blind, right? You're competing with all the big brands, with Nike and Walmart, anyone else, right, that sells online. So, good luck with that. It's going to be very hard to figure out what's the right unit economics to make this worthwhile. When it works, it's amazing. But then the question is how sustainable it is, whether you can replicate it, whether it's going to be there post the pandemic, right? We believe, and we see, not that direct to consumer is not something you should do. You should definitely focus on direct to consumer. But on the other hand, focusing on B2B sales, we see it's easier to show better results and positive return on investment. Because again, it's enough for one to buy, and not only that you get a relationship that can last longer, they usually buy more, and it's easier for you to focus on them and know that they're going to move your product. And that also allows you to work with them directly. Or if you have a distributor in the middle, connect them with your distributor while keeping the relationship going on. So it's very flexible. You can do it in different ways. What we find though is that, as Ben pointed out, a lot of the sites, the producer sites, distilleries, and so on, are focusing on the end consumer, on the brand itself. It's not focused on the B2B, on the trade. You may have a trade section with some PDFs, but a lot of times they won't even be translated to English. So, and it's not engaging, it's not actionable. There's no one place where you can click and say order now, right, from your website to a trade bar. And that's what we bring to the table, right? Yeah, I can talk about it for hours, but yeah, Maurizio.
It's an important part. There is one question I want to make sure we get to, and then I'll leave any closing comments to Maurizio. But there are a lot of producers that are super small with limited resources. What we're talking about today is for you, because the smaller you are, the smaller your team, the fewer resources you have, the more you must depend on yourself and not some other entity like an importer distributor. There are importers for your size. There are new ways to market. And I would suggest a good place to start, when you get my email with all of our contact information, just go ahead and send each of us, or one of us. I would start with Jack. If you're in Italy, anywhere in Italy, start with Maurizio. But we can show you where to go for these resources if you're super tiny, because this is good. This is good news. What we're sharing today, it's good news for small producers. Maurizio, you get the last word.
Thank you. Well, I'll be stressing and repeating what you guys have already highlighted. First of all, improve your presence in social media. Do it, and I'm talking to my Italian friends, in a proper English. Maybe hire someone who can write description of your products and history in a proper English. That is important. That makes the difference. There are very good, storytellers out there that can help you with that. And I would say that that is important. So reinforce the presence on social media. And in terms of e-commerce thing, well, there is a system, three-tier system in the United States that makes it a little bit more difficult to just sell nationwide online, especially for wine and alcoholic products. But the best answer that I personally have found to help our clients is called. I mean, I don't want to sound cheesy, but the best solution that I found out is Grapin. I found that is a platform that can help you to be digitally present in a very professional way, in a way that the right buyers can reach out to you. I don't see any other affordable way, unless you have millions of dollars that compete with Nike, as Jack was saying, to address the market, than a few $1,000s invested in a platform such as Grapin. And again, I don't want to sound cheesy. This is my professional opinion. That is a way in which an investment can get you a return for a decent amount of money. And it's consider the fact that you're saving money this year on travels, hotels, airfares and things like that. Just try to put some of those resources in something different that can be actually scalable at that point. I don't find any better answer to that question.
Okay, well, we do have to wrap it up. This has been great discussion. Thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar. Thank you, Maurizio and Jack, for your time today. Everyone who registered will get a link to the recording. You'll also get an email with all of our contact information. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.